Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I am looking at the 2nd edition Pathfinder critical hit deck. So this came out I think just at the end of September, I believe, or early October. There's also going to be a critical fumble deck that's coming out sometime in the month of October as well, which I'm really looking forward to. I've also done videos in the past for the critical hit and critical fumble deck for the Starfinder role-playing game, and both of those products have gone over really big with the groups that I'm running it for, and I think this is going to be pretty much the exact same thing. So we'll just have a quick look at it here. So what we have is really cool artwork of the rogue. Looks like they're sort of sneak attacking one of my favorite looking monsters from the bestiary, and that is the Alchemical Golem. And I mean, just look at those eyes. Like, that is I just absolutely love it. There's 54 cards included inside, and on the back it just says, sometimes doubling the damage isn't enough. Why limit yourself when you can decapitate your foe or overload them with a surge of magical energy? With the Pathfinder critical hit deck, when you score a critical hit, draw a card and apply one of 4 different effects. Beating your enemies has never been so visceral or so much fun. And you have sort of a preview of what the cards look like on the bottom there. The retail price for this was $12.99 US, and I think it was $14 or $15.99 Canadian. So overall, not a bad price to pay. So what I'm going to do is open this up, and we'll have a look at the cards inside. Hey guys, it's been about 3 days since I recorded that first part of the video, and essentially what had happened was I opened up the cellophane, looked through the cards, and that part of the video, unfortunately, the video file just got corrupted somehow. It wouldn't open in Media Player, it wouldn't open for Movie Maker. So unfortunately the original excuse me, the original unboxing part of it I've kind of lost, so I have used the cards since, although that might actually help out with this video, because I can actually give experience on how the players reacted to using the cards and stuff like that in the game. So I guess it's sort of a happy accident. So we got the deck box there. I had already purchased sleeves when I actually purchased the deck itself, so I've already sleeved everything up and use it in play because, again, I just want to take care of the cards themselves. So in addition to the regular 54 cards for the critical effects, or the 50 plus cards for the critical effects, you also have a card just going over the D20 system license. And then we've got the rules card here. So the first thing that I do want to address before I get into the rules themselves, I just want to take a minute to talk about how critical hits or misses or success or failure works in Pathfinder 2nd edition. I had someone comment on an earlier video stating that criticals were no longer dependent on a natural 20 or a natural 1, and that you get them by succeeding against your target number by 10 or greater, or in the case of critical failure, by failing by 10 or greater. And they indicated, or the tone of their comment indicated the fact that natural 20 was no longer a guaranteed critical. And I actually had that question come up in one of my games because I'd seen that comment and I'd seen other people mention things similar to it, and it actually kind of brought our game to a bit of a halt while we looked up the specific ruling. So I'm just going to talk about attack rolls here today, not skill checks or other things along those lines at this point in time. But for attack rolls, a natural 20 increases the success rate by 1 step, regardless of what it would have been. The natural 1 lowers your success type by 1 over what it would have been. So rolling a natural 20, most of the time at least, is going to result in a critical hit. because you're still equaling or exceeding the target's armor class. I haven't come across a situation where a character's level plus, or their character's armor class, or NPCs or villains armor class was greater than whatever, like 20 plus the average attack bonus of the party was. So while it's something that could come up where a natural 20 results in just a regular success where it would have potentially been a failure before, 99% of the time, if you roll a natural 20 on an attack roll, it is going to be a critical hit. And the reason that I want to point that out is that with this deck, with the default rules, it says a group can use critical hit deck in their game to make combat more surprising and dangerous. Whenever a PC scores a critical hit due to a natural 20 on the die roll, that player can draw one card from this deck and apply the effect appropriate to that attack's type. So bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing in the case of a weapon or an unarmed strike, or a bomb or spell for either a bomb or spell attack roll. Since these effects can be deadly against player characters, the GM draws for a monster or NPC or hazard only if the creature or hazard's level is equal to or greater than the target's level. Honestly, I kind of ignored that part of it when we were running, when I was running the session where I got to use these, although I don't actually think it came into effect because they're first level characters, and I think the monsters that they were going up against were all like creature 1 or greater. So I don't think it came into effect, but that is one part of it that I actually had forgotten when we were running, and I just sort of got caught up in it. There's also the deadly variant, and the deadly variant allows you to draw a card anytime you score a critical hit, regardless of whether it's a natural 20 or not. So if you attack a creature with an armor class of 16 and you get a total of 26 on your roll, using the deadly variant, you can draw the cards for that. I don't use that version, and I don't think I will, because I want a natural 20 to still feel special. And having the natural 20 be the only way to draw from that deck is the way that I see it as still making a natural 20 feel special. Alright, so then we have some special rules. So a critical hit still deals double damage to the target unless the card's entry says it deals normal damage or triple damage, or if the entry's effect doesn't apply to the attack used. Any effect that is listed as a critical effect replaces your weapon's critical specialization effect, which is in the Pathfinder core rulebook on page 283, if it had one, or if you're able to use it by having the appropriate class, feature, or feat. If you want, you can disregard the effect of the card and use the critical specialization effect of your weapon if you would prefer to use that. It's up to you at that point. Any card effect using a critical specialization effect follows the rules for that effect unless otherwise stated. Effects that scale by level use the attacker's level. The save DC for an effect inflicted by a PC is their class DC. For creatures and hazards, use a hard DC for the creature or hazard's level. And there's multiple DCs based on the difficulty you want to assign to it. An effect that lasts until healed ends once the target has hit points restored with treat wounds or is restored to full hit points and rests for 10 minutes. So this was a situation that we also saw with the wounded ability, or the wounded condition as well. So just getting regular hit points back from like a cure spell, or I guess heal spell, or anything along those lines isn't enough to remove those conditions. You have to use either the medicine skill, which again makes the medicine skill feel so much more useful than it is in other games, or they have to get back up to full hit points and rest for 10 minutes, which if you don't have anyone with the medicine skill trained in it, and you don't have any dedicated healers in the party, then you're going to have to rest for a few days and then some to get that back. So anyway, that's just sort of how the cards work. So let's just have a look at just a couple of them here. We're not going to go through every single one. And again, these were sort of shuffled up and used already, but we'll just look at this first one here, and then maybe a couple more. And I do apologize if the video looks a little bit shaky. I've noticed that the autofocus is starting to act up a little bit in this camera. It's on a tripod. It's mounted on a tripod. It's stationary, but I do see times where it looks like it's kind of wobbling a bit. So I do apologize for that. It's just an issue with the focus. Alright, so the first one we have here is Backbreaker. So that's the bludgeoning effect if you're using like a Warhammer or a mace or something along those lines. It's a crit effect, which means it replaces your weapon's critical specialization effect if you have one, or you can use whatever the regular one is. But it says until healed, the target is clumsy 2 and enfeebled 2. So basically, clumsy 2 affects, it imposes a -2 penalty to dex-based things, such as, I believe it's even armor class, but like ranged attacks, reflex saving throws, dexterity-based skill checks, all get that. And then enfeebled 2 does the exact same thing, but for strength checks. Then we have, for piercing weapons, you have Deep Wound, and you got like the image for a bludgeoning weapon looks like a hammer. You have like a trident for the piercing. You have an axe head for slashing, and then you got the little lightning bolt for either bomb attacks or spell attacks. So pretty cool. So Deep Wound is the target is sickened 3. Brow Cut, normal damage, crit effect, the target takes 1d4 persistent bleed damage. Until the bleed ends, all creatures are concealed to that target. So they essentially get blood in their eyes, which is kind of cool. But if you're attacking something like an undead or a construct, for example, or something, actually constructs might be immune to criticals. But if you're attacking like an undead, for example, this effect may not be able to apply. If you're like fighting a skeleton, it's obviously not gonna bleed. So that's an example where one of these cards might not be able to be used. Although in my game, if you draw an effect that doesn't apply, I'll let them draw a second card first before they kind of lose the benefit of the natural 20. And then we have Mystical Thwart for the bomb or spell. And it says you can't activate magic items, cast spells, or use quick alchemy until the end of it. The target can until the end of its next turn. So that's one of the cards there. We'll just look through a couple more, but that's basically the way that they all function. And there are some pretty cool effects in here. So I want to see if I can find rattled. Okay, I actually kind of like this one. So we'll look at this card here. But like I said, they're all formatted the exact same way. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that we can get here. So this card here, the bludgeoning effect, is Crushed Toe. So this does normal damage, meaning that you don't double your critical damage. In fact, it looks like all the effects on this card are normal damage, but they have some pretty negative effects as well. So Crushed Toe, the target is clumsy 2 and takes a -10-foot status penalty to its land speed. Both effects last until healed. So again, medicine skill or restored to full hit points and a 10-minute rest. Regular magical healing is not going to take that away. Stinger for the piercing. Normal damage, but the target is sickened 3, which imposes a -3 penalty on a bunch of different things. This is the one that I kind of liked. Missing Digits. So it's normal damage. Again, you don't do double, but this is also a crit effect, so you can use your weapons one or this one if you prefer. But this one, the target loses 1d4 fingers on one hand and becomes clumsy 2 until subject of a regeneration spell or similar effect. So that one can be really, really nasty, especially if you're a character that uses two-handed weapons. So that one is just mean, but I kind of love it. And then we have Strange God for the bomber spell. So it does normal damage. The target is restrained using your class DC as the DC to escape. So that's an example of another card there. We'll look at one more. And this one here has a few different types of effects on it. So first one is Armor Dent, deals normal damage, but the crit effect is deal the same amount of damage to the target's armor, ignoring that armor's hardness. So you can actually potentially destroy someone's armor if they get hit with the bludgeoning attack and you manage to draw that card. So again, that could be a pretty powerful ability as well. If it breaks, then they lose the armor classes, the armor's item bonus to their AC. Another one here, Eye Patch for you. Triple damage, and the crit effect is the target is dazzled until healed. And then we have, for the slashing, we have Flat Blade Thwack. Triple damage, you deal bludgeoning damage instead of slashing damage. And then we have Magical Glow for the bomber spell. The target glows for 1 minute with the effect of a fairy fire spell. And there's all kinds of different, unique abilities to all these cards. Like I said, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but there's just a lot of really cool stuff. And I love, again, some of the names for some of these attacks, like That'll Leave a Mark, Sliced Hand. It was another kind of mean one. Throat Slash, Life Leech, and Stay Down. So again, there's just some really nice Lights Out, just some really nice, just fun names for some of these things. We have Icy Stars, which also happens to be in the same card as Disembowel, which just deals triple damage. But again, just some really, really cool stuff here. And I have had a chance to actually Spinal Tap. Awesome movie. I also had a chance to actually use these cards in play, and not a lot of them got drawn on this particular session. It seems like nobody was rolling particularly high, which will be a story for another video. This was one of the ones I think that was used, though. We had Crushed Trachea, Pierced Elbow, and Long Gash. But the group really had a lot of fun with the cards, and whenever attack rolls were made, they just wanted to see if they got a natural 20 so they could draw from the deck. So my teeth. And yeah, so like this is a really fun addition to the Pathfinder game, and it just, these card decks in general. Excuse me. These card decks in general have just always gone over really well, at least in my experiences. So with Starfinder, I have both the Critical Hit and Critical Fumble deck, and I can't wait to get the Critical Fumble deck for Pathfinder, because while there was only a couple natural 20s rolled, there were a whole bunch of natural ones, and I would love to get an opportunity to have that deck as well. But this is just always a great addition to your game. Like I said, it sort of spices things up or livens things up for the purposes of just making combat seem a little bit more interesting. And I have found that with these cards, it keeps the players engaged when it comes to watching the attack rolls, even of other players. So I think it helps maybe with some people maintaining their focus on combat, which is always a good thing. So while I don't consider this to be something that's essential to your Pathfinder game, I still think it will add a lot to it, and it's just a lot of a fun dynamic to have. And it's always exciting when someone draws a card. Like when someone rolls a natural 20 and they throw their arms in the air and yell out crit. It's just a good feeling, I think, as a game master. So if you're running Pathfinder 2nd Edition and you want something to spruce up combat maybe just a little bit, then I highly recommend getting the Critical Hit deck. You can use it however you wish, although I still think that having it be on a natural 20 only makes the natural 20s feel a little bit more important or special. So that's how I plan on using it, but it's still a great addition to your game. So let me know in the comments below if any of you watching have used or have a game master that owns a copy of these cards, and what your experiences were with them. What sort of interesting or fun things did the cards grant you on your attacks? I'd love to know. I'd love to hear stories of how some of these things have been used in game. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.